Oh, thank you, and welcome everyone for joining us tonight. I am Melinda. I'm the Director of Public Citizens Medicare for All campaign, and I'm thrilled to welcome you tonight to tonight's Medicare for All Resolutions 101 training. I want to especially thank you for taking the time to join us tonight, given the bewildering and overwhelming context we're living in with the pandemic, the election, Supreme Court, the uprising for racial justice, the climate catastrophe. There's so many of us that are fighting on so many fronts and also have to take care of ourselves and our families. So I really want to thank you for being a part of our growing movement and being with us here tonight. Some of you may have joined our recent National All-Star Healthcare Justice Town Hall that was led by Senator Sanders, Representative Jayapal, and Representative Presley, where we heard from some of our country's leading voices on how we build the movement for Medicare for All. And so tonight, though, we're coming together as a next step to dig into the nuts and bolts of how to take action in our communities using one important tactic that to build the movement that's really relevant everywhere. And that's mobilizing to win local, city, and county council resolutions in support of Medicare for All. For the last 18 months, a broad coalition of organizations has come together to support grassroots leaders around the country to pass these municipal resolutions. Our campaign has really now produced a winning formula that can be used by activists of all experience levels to pass resolutions in your communities. Tonight, together with our close partner, Connie Huynh from People's Action, and my colleague, Brittany Shanahan from Public Citizen, and our Indiana activist, Noelia Rodriguez, we're going to share how this tactic can fit into the broader Medicare for All movement and some of the campaign's infrastructure and tools that we have to share with you this evening. So please ask us questions and share your ideas in the chat. Let us know where you're from, and we'll have some time for Q&A about the resolutions campaign and the toolkit. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. If you have questions about Medicare for All policy or would like to discuss other organizing tactics, feel free to email us at medicareforall@citizen.org, and we'll follow up with you after tonight's webinar. But we want to really keep it focused and really respect your time tonight. So before we jump in, I'd like to play just a short 2-minute video clip that we and Senator Sanders pulled together that highlights some of the city council champions and grassroots activists that we had in our recent town hall as an introduction to this tactic. I thought that it was excellent, and so since it's short, I thought I would, as long as I can actually make it work, I would share that with you. So okay, and let me.
Without Medicare for All.
During this pandemic, it is critical for every single person to have the healthcare that they need.
What the COVID-19 pandemic laid bare is a harsh and painful reality that Philadelphia's poor and working class communities have long known. Our healthcare system is broken.
We have frontline heroes, essential workers who are too poor to afford medical care.
In the middle of a pandemic, why everybody can't have healthcare is a large question to me, and one that shouldn't even have to be asked. One that you couldn't ask in any other industrialized country.
Earlier this year, in May 2020, I brought a resolution before our city council in support of Medicare for All. That resolution passed, 7 votes in support, 2 against, and I was ecstatic.
In 2018, I was incredibly proud to partner with our Philadelphia DSA chapter and pass a Medicare for All resolution that denounced the depravity of an unjust and unequal healthcare system and affirmed again that healthcare is a human right.
And we need to get away from the for-profit system. We need a system that's going to support the American public.
So in New Jersey, we passed 3 resolutions. We passed 2 at the municipal level and 1 at the county level.
I wanted to pass a Medicare for All resolution in the city of Durham because it's just so important to me that we make sure that our residents have what they need to thrive. And healthcare it's a basic need. It's not a privilege.
It won't happen unless we are pushing forward at the grassroots level.
We don't have to wait for Congress.
This needs to be a national movement.
We need universal health care. We should have had it yesterday.
The proper treatment of healthcare as a human right actually makes us all safer.
Everybody out there, go out and organize for a municipal, local Medicare for All resolution.
And fight until Medicare for All becomes the law of the land.
So as I mentioned, over the past year and a half, our broad coalition has built an infrastructure and grassroots toolkit to support activists in cities and towns, large and small, to win local resolutions from their city and county councils in support of Medicare for All. And already there are more than 350 local efforts that are underway in cities and towns in blue, red, and purple states. We've won 45 such resolutions so far, recruiting powerful new champions for Medicare for All among these local elected officials, such as those that you saw in this video. And we've built enduring local coalitions and used that process to get local media and to educate members of the community. Local governments can really play an important role in highlighting the desperate need for expanded and improved Medicare for All, because local government officials understand all too well the consequences of our unaffordable and inequitable health insurance system. And that's become tragically even more the case in the context of COVID-19 and the economic downturn. Municipal budgets are increasingly strapped as health insurance premiums increase. Local businesses are struggling to make ends meet due to rising health insurance premiums, or if they've been forced to lay off workers who then have lost their health insurance. And local governments often provide the frontline response when community members face medical debt related bankruptcies or become gravely ill or die needlessly because they lacked adequate health insurance. So by passing these resolutions, local governments can help shape the national public narrative and build the political will we'll need to win guaranteed health care for everyone as a matter of right. Now I'd like to turn it over to our wonderful and steadfast partner, Connie Huynh, who directs People's Action's Healthcare for All campaign, to share more about how it fits into our overall strategy and some of your insights. So welcome, Connie.
Thanks, Melinda, and thank you to Public Citizen for having me on again. Really appreciate being here and seeing so many new folks here tonight. As I get started, I also want to invite everybody who is here tonight to share why you're here, right? What led you to join tonight? And so if you could add into the chat, why you're fighting for Medicare for All, why it's so important to you, why you're doing this over other things like self-care tonight, right? We want to hear, why you're here. And so while folks are sharing, I do want to share, what brings me here tonight. People's Action is a national network of power building grassroots organization. We're fighting against racial capitalism to win a new economy, right, that is controlled by ordinary people. And so in this fight, basically the MO of corporations is at odds with our health, right? And so that's why we're committed to the fight for Medicare for All. And in my family, like I have a story of, our family surviving, the nightmare of our healthcare industry, because my family hasn't had health insurance for most of our lives, but in COVID, this nightmare has gotten even worse and continues to get worse, right? 2 of my family members were laid off from their longtime jobs and lost their health insurance in the middle of the pandemic. I have a friend who has lost 2 aunties who were nurses due to COVID. I have another friend who was just, who was laid off earlier, didn't even have health insurance at her job. And so, COBRA wasn't even an option. And she learned this week that a family member tested positive for COVID in the household that she lives in. So they're all scrambling, trying to figure out what they're going to do in this crisis. And I'm looking at the chat here and I'm seeing, yep, all the families that are struggling to afford their health care. Some have been in this fight for a really long time. So lots of reasons why people are here tonight, and just want to acknowledge that and lift it up, because this is a really important step in us winning Medicare for all, right? During this entire time in the pandemic, like there hasn't been a real solution that's been acted on, right, to actually bring healthcare to the millions of people who are left without it in the pandemic. And so there's a real issue that we need to address here. And how can that actually be, right? We have members of Congress that are either too afraid to stand up to their corporate backers, or they're making, you know, the calculation or decision that your life, my life, the life of millions of people aren't worth as much as the comfort of their ivory towers, right? And so we have a really important role to play to bridge that gap, right? To make sure that they don't get to sit too comfortably in their ivory towers, hiding from our pain. And so what we're here to discuss tonight, local resolutions through cities and counties, is exactly how we do it. Connecting our local pain up to the federal level so that our federal lawmakers are actually forced to bring us a real solution that addresses this crisis, right? So passing local Medicare for all resolutions is a vehicle that is already in motion, right? So all we have to do is we've got to get into the driver's seat and join the caravan. And we know that based off of the election, right, that the polls show that the majority of voters actually support Medicare for all. Ordinary people understand that that would be the solution in this pandemic. And while so many other things, right, are taking up oxygen in this moment, we've got to change that conversation so that we can demonstrate that people want and demand Medicare for all. And we're not giving up just because we're in a pandemic. In fact, we're fighting even harder because that's how badly we actually need it, right? So what we can do, right, even though we're physically distanced and all of that, we can actually build relationships with our local officials to pass these resolutions. And in this moment, it's really important that we do that, right? To demand that they actually take a stand. And them taking that stand is going to create this wave of momentum that shows that people actually support Medicare for all, and something actually needs to be done to act on it. So there's also this other thing that's happening, right? This thing called the Affordable Care Act. It's a big thing that is going to be decided on between November 10th and the spring of next year. And so it's possible that millions of more people could lose their health coverage. You know, protections for patients and consumers could be eroded. And at some point, once, you know, pieces of the ACA are overturned or all of it, who knows what will actually happen. We're going to need an actual solution to replace what they've dismantled, right? And if we wait too long, then the decision and the solution will be decided for us. But if we're in motion now demanding Medicare for all and the ACA gets overturned, guess what? That is the solution, right? And so we need to make sure that that is the topic of conversation as all of this unfolds. So I can't stress enough how urgent and important it is that we all, you know, get in the driver's seat now to work on this. So yeah, that is the strategy that's on the table right now. And, you know, this, again, this is something that your city and county representatives all have in common. 1 second, please. My child just opened the door. Oh, pandemic life. How funny is that? Anyway, all that to say, we've got to be the ones to make the decision and call the shots. And so this is why we are here tonight, right? Real life. And so with that, thank you to everyone for having me here tonight. I'm going to hand it over to Brittany Shanahan now to talk about all the resources that are available for us to make this happen.
Great. Thanks so much, Connie. My name is Brittany Shanahan, and I have had the honor to support national leaders all over the country in cities and towns, large and small. And it's been exciting to see how everyone from the long-term single-payer advocates, as some of you were seeing here in the chat, to folks who have never organized before. All of these different people have been able to dig in and use the tools that we've created to help build the movement in their communities. I'm going to share with you some of the step-by-step guidance and resources that we have that are all available on the coalition website at medicareforallresolutions.org. So let's go there. I'm going to share my screen. There it is. All right. So are you seeing, sorry, Melinda, is it just showing the Internet Explorer?
I'm seeing your whole screen, not just.
Okay, let's try a new share. There we go. Okay, that should be better. So the first step in here is to plan a virtual meeting. So to get there, let me show you where the toolkit is. On our website, under Tools for Activists, it's just in the top menu. So we go there, and this is the toolkit that we have. And so the first one is when you're organizing your resolution, the first step is to plan a virtual meeting. And we're saying virtual because we are in this new normal. And you use this virtual meeting to recruit activists in your area to your team. So let's click on that, plan a virtual organizing meeting to get started. So whether or not you already know people who will want to attend, we do have all the tools that you'll need right here on this page in order to organize your first meeting. So here are some tips so here's a tool where we have some tips for outreach. There's some ideas in there on how to help spread the word to people in your area, who to reach out to lean on to get the word out to more people, how to use Zoom for your meeting, and more. We also have a guide, so I'm gonna go back. We have a guide for social media to get the word out, as well as in here, we just added some sample agendas. In the sample agendas, we have one that has a list of talking points in it for your first meeting that'll help relieve some of the pressure of organizing, and then another sample agenda that you can use in subsequent group meetings. So going back to the toolkit, the next step is to get ready for a meeting with a council member. It doesn't have to be your personal council member, just a council member. When you're approaching council members or county commissioners on this issue, you don't have to be in their district to get them to introduce the resolution for you. So plan a meeting with your council member or county commissioner. This next page offers advice on how to secure that meeting. We have this sample email request right here that you can use to write your council member. And then if I go back, let me show you, we also have some sample resolution language right here. This is some sample COVID resolution language. And going back, don't worry if this is too fast, we are recording this. So we'll be able to send it afterwards and you can see all this again. I'll show you in a minute also as well where you can go to read resolutions that have been passed in other cities to take samples from that language as well. So going back to this toolkit to get to your next step. So once you've recruited your council champion and your resolution has made it onto the council agenda, it's time to get ready for your hearing. You'll want to let us know that it's coming up so that we can help out, because this is one of the places where we really step in and help out a lot. We'll tap into our network of supporters and partner organizations and work with you to generate calls and emails to the offices of council members who haven't yet committed themselves as supporters of your resolution. They usually get pretty supportive pretty quick because their staff don't like all the phone calls coming. So that's pretty efficient. We've also got a testimony guide down here to help your team prepare for the hearing. And then further down, we have a list of tools and strategies that you can use to help you and your team reach out to the media and obtain press coverage of a successful resolution. One of my favorite ones in there is like the resource we have to help you work on your press release that you write. You know, you're pretty sure your resolution is going to pass, so you write your press release in advance. In normal times, you would hand the press release to the reporters in the city hall. They're not there right now, but at least you can get things going and you can email it out when you're ready. And we'll do the same. We'll email it to our press contacts as well. And we've worked with many local groups on press releases, and we're happy to help out with that as well. So going back to the toolkit page, we've just gone through some of the main steps in the process of winning the resolution. And we do also have a condensed PDF version of everything I just said right here. And now I want to show you some additional resources that we have to help you tie in the importance of your resolution to the global pandemic that we're in the middle of right now. So going down here, we have this COVID-19 resources and talking points. We have some talking points here. We have some talking points, some sample resolution language. It's another link to the same sample resolution, and there's also a guide to help you write a letter to the editor of your local paper, which is something that you can do when maybe you're waiting, maybe everyone's waiting to hear back from your council member, and that side of things is going slow. It's never a bad time to write that op-ed. So, and that's also something we help out with as well. Next, I want to show you all how to see our map of past resolutions. So to see the map in this menu up here, you click Take Action in your town. There we go. Find your town. Here is our map. And we have listed all the towns where an activist has worked on a resolution since the start of the campaign. We have over 350 local efforts on this map, which is really, really exciting and sometimes very hard to keep track of. If you are not already, we do encourage you to sign up to join one of the efforts near you. Even better, you can, if there isn't already a dot on the map where your town is, we'll just sign up or send us a message and we will help you get one started. There's a link to sign up on all of these as well. Let's hide you back away. So we do need your help to move some of these over the finish line and to fill out the map with more dots from coast to coast. The green, I can't wait until we're back in the office and we get the interns to put all of them on the map as pins. It'll take a really long time. But the green dots here, they represent resolutions that have passed. And if you scroll down from the map, you can see this list right here of all the cities that have passed resolutions. And these links have the text of the resolutions there. So one that I would draw your attention to is the resolution that was passed in New Orleans. A lot of thought was put into it with the activists who put it together. And it offers a really great example that ties the health crisis with specific information about racial health disparities among New Orleans residents. It really puts the totality of our overall health crisis and then brings in COVID as well, all in it together. this resolution, it also includes language about the Healthcare Emergency Guarantee Act, which is was introduced by Senator Sanders and Pramila Jayapal as a sort of like a let's get everybody covered during this pandemic type of legislation, make sure that everyone gets health care, especially people who have lost their jobs. And it offers a really winning solution, because on the one hand, when it's an immediate COVID relief resolution, and then on the other hand, it's a Medicare for all resolution. And so this is what we need immediately, and then this is what we need after that, as well as it's a lot harder for council members to speak out against a joint resolution on the city council floor, because they don't want to sound like they're against COVID relief. So let me show you all another one. So I want to show you the resolution that Ann Arbor did. It's sort of a different example. Oh, it is a Word document. So I don't know that is going to show up, but the Michigan resolution, what it does is it also includes information about the Michigan State House Bill 6285, which is also known as MyCare. And it's an example of a resolution where activists saw an opportunity where they had a state single payer bill to put pressure to include both in their resolution, so both that and Medicare for all, in order to put pressure on their representatives at both the state and at the federal level. So again, there's lots of different examples. There are cities, there are counties, there are small towns, there are suburbs, there's everything in there. And again, please remember to sign up for your town on the map. All you need to do is just click any of these, and it will take you to a link where you can sign up, and you can choose where you live, or just write it in if it's not in there. You can write it in right there. And if you live in a city or near a city that has already passed a resolution, start thinking about the nearby suburb towns, because being able to point to the resolution that is already passed nearby makes it much more likely that those council members will follow suit. And in fact, one thing that some groups have done is when they've started organizing their first set of resolutions, they've picked the most progressive town, the easiest fruit, the lowest hanging fruit, before then going to the town where they actually live. You only need a couple people in your group that actually live in the city that you're organizing for. So going back to the toolkit, let's see, going back to the toolkit, we do also have video links to past webinars, and as well as a variety of presentations and fact sheets that our activists and our organizational partners have found useful in their resolution efforts that have passed. And in addition to all of this, we also offer regular one-on-one support, monthly webinars, really bad dad jokes, as well as regular calls for activists who are actively meeting with their local groups to share tips and strategies with one another. We are recording all of this, and we will be sending you a copy afterwards. So if you feel like you missed something, don't worry, we are here for you every step of the way. I look forward to working with you in resolutions in the time to come. And so make sure that you, as well as connecting you all to folks that are in your area organizing nearby. So make sure that you sign up on the map if you haven't already. But now I want to introduce you all to one of a wonderful activist that we have worked with at the local level in South Bend, Indiana. Noelia Rodriguez has been wonderful to work with, and I think has a really good handle on the resolutions process and how to look at it from an outsider. So without any further ado, Noelia, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Hi, everyone. So I'm just gonna go real quick over the points that I say that I need to cover and try to clarify as much of the process and demystify a lot about the process. I think the first thing that we are prone to do, and that I did myself, is overthink the strategy. And it was really important that you not only familiarize yourself with all of these tools that Brittany went over. I certainly did. But know that you don't have to be the expert, on the topic of Medicare for all. You just have to be able to connect people to the resources. And that is more than enough when it comes to making these resolutions happen in the first place. And the reason I say this is a lot of people get stuck in thinking, well, how do I go about like persuading, the council members? Like once I start, this conversation, my group starts this conversation. I really think that, especially in these times, in the midst of the pandemic, the political momentum is truly on our side. We have the leverage, even for more center-leaning and right-of-center, council members who have like personal inclinations that are not in favor of Medicare for all. They're going to be very hard-pressed to be the ones to object to this type of resolution, which doesn't really have, for their purposes, an immediate like legislative impact. This is really a cumulative thing that we're trying to build at the national level and through our collective efforts. And so I would say don't get stuck on that. Really make sure you get your talking points, but most importantly, it's about showing up. So just as an example, what we did here is I took advantage of the fact that there was already a buzz around Bernie at the time that we started talking about passing a Medicare for All resolution at the South Bend City Council. So we were already meeting on a weekly basis with this group that eventually became the local Revolution chapter or organization for South Bend, for Michiana, actually. And so it was at these meetings that we started talking about creating a working group that was more like geared towards Medicare for all. So I'd say if you have that type of progressive coalition already built up, that's really a good place to start organizing around this. Once we did that, we started to reach out also as part of our effort to other organizations, local organizations that were also progressive, but weren't necessarily, around Bernie. For example, we reached out to Sunrise Movement South Bend because there are, environmental arguments as well to be made, or environmentally related arguments. For example, the disproportionate impact of climate change on certain populations and how that increases like healthcare needs and such and such. So these conversations can be had even cross with other progressive groups that are issue focused, but not necessarily, specifically on Medicare for all, but it's connected. So we reached out to Sunrise Movement, we reached out to DSA, Northern Indiana, we reached out to Black Lives Matter South Bend. And so we made sure that they at least, were on board, even if we were like, moving this process along with staying in constant communication. Melinda and Brittany were fantastic in being basically on call, just one email away. They really made sure to hold our hand through the process and make sure that we didn't feel lost. So once you've organized this initiative, just know that, and you reach out, you get mapped with Medicare for All resolutions.org. Definitely get that done. We did that ourselves. It's a good way for people that are just like moving towards that issue to find you more easily, not necessarily having to navigate through a specific organization. And so I got lost. So we reached out, we create this coordination. Why? Also, when all the pieces come together and you finally found your ally in council, and honestly, that was almost, it kind of fell for, again, the time is right. So we were very lucky to have council member Henry Davis Jr. reach out, express his support for this initiative and other progressive initiatives that he wanted to get through council. Keep in mind that council members, especially the smaller the locality, they're not like federal Congress, you know, congressmen, that they have this huge staff. Many of them don't have any staff. Like maybe they have a family member that like part-time helps them with some administrative matters. So they really welcome, you know, that we are basically doing the job for them. So if this is something that speaks to their constituents, trust me, when you come to them and you say, look, here's the draft resolution, and that's my tip to you, get as much work on that end done, right? Make it easy for them. When you do that, that email, if you want to introduce yourself via email, attach a template and say, you know, this is what we have in mind, you know. In our case, we had a combined resolution with like COVID language. We really were inspired with what New Orleans did. So we tried to model ours after that, especially because there's just a big African-American, Latino, Latinx population here in South Bend. So we make sure to incorporate the needs of that community as well, explicitly, and the emergency relief as well. So Henry Davis was on our side from the very beginning, but we made sure, you know, we made him feel as supported as possible so that he could focus on lobbying other council members, you know, to get behind the resolution. And it was all the Democrats joined. I mean, again, you don't want to be the lone Democrat, no matter how center or right of center you are, to stand against, you know, a Medicare for all resolution. It's just politically, you have everything to lose politically and nothing to gain. The one lonely voice was the one Republican, and of course he threw like the free market stuff. And obviously that doesn't fit when we're speaking in terms of a moral argument for why this should not be a for-profit system. So get that ally, but don't overthink the process. Trust your tools, and most importantly, connect your council member, your ally council member, to those tools. And that also includes Brittany and Melinda. If they want to do a press release, they're going to help them navigate that. And of course, you as a liaison, you know, connecting with the local coalition, they're just going to be so much more excited about this, and you can even push their vision further, because a lot of them are just limited by, well, this is all that I have to get the kind of things that I want to get done, you know, done. So you can actually even inspire your local politicians by making sure that they feel properly supported with these tools. So that's all I have to say, I think.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much, Noelia. No, I think that really helps to demystify the process, and that's what we really want to do here tonight, is for folks to not feel overwhelmed by the process. And each city and town is different, and some, you know, in New England there are town meetings. We have seen town meetings being used to pass resolutions. I've seen some questions in the chat about, you know, having too many whereases clauses is not going to be good for your city. All of these things are malleable. You can work with the structure and do what works best for your community. But what's really also really important is that we can then all support each other, and that we're learning as we go along with, like, the experience in South Bend and the experience in New Orleans, in these small towns in New Jersey. What has been working, what are some of the challenges, and we can kind of help coax, you know, help you through it. And so we encourage folks to do that. I do want to encourage folks, if you have questions, I know there's been a lot of great engagement in the chat. We've been trying to keep up with that. But perhaps if Brittany or Connie would like to, or Noelia, if you want to just like scan the chat, and if there are any questions there to go ahead and answer them. One of the questions that came up, I just wanted to address was the question of the strategy, how this actually, what happens if any one resolution passes, like why do that as opposed to something else. And I just do want to say that this is not the only tactic out there, and we really encourage you to do in-district meetings. We encourage you to do other public education that you with members of Congress. But this tactic works in all all districts. So in some places, you know, if there's a member of Congress who's always going to be hostile to Medicare for all, you don't really have much to do in engaging with that member after a while. So this is something you can do to build the base in that district until you have the opportunity to get rid of that person, right? And if you have a champion already, those champions in Congress are getting hammered by the pharmaceutical industry and the insurance industries, and we need to champion them up, and we need them to be able to point to, look, all the towns in my district are saying I need to do this, like, so I need to keep doing it. I need to be a champion. And if they're undecided, this is another tactic to use to try to push them over, and for them to see, this isn't just activists who are talking to me, this is also the city councils in my district. So that's why it really is a useful tactic. And then the other thing is just the numbers. If we get a lot of numbers, we actually had a strategy around a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United around money in politics. That was something that not very many people knew much about, and there was a strong, a few years ago, effort to pass city and county council resolutions. There are now 800 of those around the country about money in politics, and that really changed the national conversation about money in politics, to the extent that the first bill that the House passed in this Congress was about money in politics and was about overturning Citizens United. And so that's, you know, so that's just an example of why. So we'll turn it over. I think, Noelia, you had a question to answer, and go ahead.
Well, I just wanted, I did catch someone, I don't know who, but someone mentioned ALEC. And that's a quick point that I wanted to make. There's a great book that I've been reading. It's called State Capture. And it's about how Republicans basically took over the political apparatus at the local and state level in a matter of a decade. And so, and someone said, you know, if ALEC can do it, so can we. I agree wholeheartedly. And this is part of it. This is the type of initiative precisely that goes to the heart of that strategy. The idea being, right, we take over the localities in the state. And so it is that it's leverage. Let's see if we get lucky and we have Pat Hackett take over Jackie Walorski here, who's held on to that congressional seat for a while, I believe since 2013. This is the type of thing where, you know, when we sit down later, you know, let's hope she gets elected, but it's like, look, this South Bend, and let's hope Goshen, someone here said they burned Goshen passed, Elkhart, you know, everyone that's covered by her district, I'm not sure that they're in District 2, you can use those things to now put them on the spot, basically, and say, okay, what are you doing now to move this agenda forward? I mean, the people in your district have spoken.
Great, thank you. Brittany or Connie, do you have any responses to anything that you've seen in the chat?
Yeah, there was someone who asked, how do I get in touch with the people who are organizing near me? And I'm doing that for you, or we're getting you in touch. So we actually had, last night, we had a leaders call with a lot of folks who have been organizing for resolution for a while, some who have done so successfully. When we said, just to tell them that, hey, we got a bunch of new signups from the town hall we had a few weeks ago. We have all these new people who are ready to work on a Medicare for All resolution effort, and can we connect them to you? And they were like, yes. So we're gonna do that. I saw that someone said something about Jackie asked about Chico. We actually do have things are getting pretty close in Chico. I'll connect you, definitely.
I saw another question about whether if the county had passed a resolution, whether it's useful to also ask the city or vice versa. I think the answer is yes, because in terms of the goal that we set about wanting to pass as many as possible, we want to pick up the numbers wherever we can. And also the other thing that we find is that local officials, many of them are ambitious politically, and they may be the people who run for Congress in the future. And so we want to get as many of those local officials to be champions of this policy as possible and be talking about it. So I would say yes. The other thing I would say is, if you're in a city that has already passed a resolution, I wouldn't say that you're done, because think about the towns that are in the suburbs nearby, or we've actually found that you're able to move a resolution much more easily if a nearby city has also passed it. I mean, that actually happened in Michigan, that Ann Arbor passed a resolution, and then one of the small towns, Pittsfield, right next door, they sent the resolution to Pittsfield and they passed it in a couple of weeks. So like, there's also, you know, you can kind of build on that momentum as well. And we will definitely be connecting, folks, and it's great to see everybody in the chat already organizing with each other. I love this. That's what this is about, is that we're going to try to make these connections and help to build the movement in that way. And I saw someone asked if we would save the chat. We are going to save the chat, so we will be able to, and I really also want to thank everyone for all of the really moving reasons that you put at the beginning with after Connie asked for folks to say why they're here. It's really powerful, and we'll definitely be using that as well. Connie, do you have any other kind of closing thoughts based on what you've seen in the chat, or thoughts about this?
I mean, I just want to, you know, I think I don't really have a ton of new stuff to add. Do want to say, somebody asked a question around elections. You never know, right? Like what a city council member or person may decide. So I think the key is like present them with the opportunity, and they'll let you know sort of what the timeline is. You know, it may be in their best interest, and so you know, there is a possibility you could pass something before the election, or, you know, just build that relationship so that it can pass after, you know, right after the election. But I'm really excited about all of the energy here tonight. It's so great, and really appreciate Public Citizen for continuing to hold this space, and for everybody who has shown up tonight.
Great. I see a question about whether school boards are appropriate targets, and yes, we have actually found that for many school boards, their health insurance premiums are one of their largest, but I mean, it's the largest after salaries, their budget items, and so this is something that would mean significant savings for school boards, which would mean being able to put more resources into actual education and needs and supplies and so forth. And so we actually have found in Connecticut, I believe there was a member of the school board who published an op-ed about just that. And so we would be very eager to include school boards as well. So yes, so school boards can, or using the school board as an opportunity to raise the issue with the city councils or the county councils. This has been really exciting. And Brittany, do you have any other last things? I see that there's a lot more questions that are coming in here, and a lot of great comments. We will be sharing, again, we will follow up with you, make sure that we're connecting people. It's great to see all of the energy of what's already happening and what people are doing. And if you're new, don't be intimidated. Just jump right in. We have the tools to be able to help you.
Yeah, I did want to jump in too, because we do have lots of questions here, and we will be combing through the chat tomorrow morning to make sure that we answered everyone's questions. I can't remember which school board in Connecticut it was that it was written about. I think it was New London. But we will find that, and we can send it as well to you with the notes. I think I did have an answer to a question that kept coming up. It was, I think one thing with the school boards is that sometimes in some cities handle the cost of health expenses for school employees as part of the city payroll. Other times it's put on into school boards. Where it's not in the school boards, you can, that can also be like an organizing tool when you are putting out when you find out how much money the city is spending on healthcare plans for city employees. It usually takes up a lot of money, but even without the school boards, it's a lot of money, and we can help out with that as well.
Great. Well, again, I see there's a question of how many participants are there. Tonight we have more than 100 folks who have joined us as part of this training, which we think is really exciting. And we will continue to be doing these. We're going to make the recording available to the more than 2,000 folks who recently signed up to be a part of our resolutions effort. And I do want to just acknowledge that we all are, as again I said at the beginning, we're all fighting on a lot of different fronts, and we are going to be distracted in the next few weeks, and that is okay. Monumental things are happening in our country. The election is extremely important, but what we do know is that, this is something that regardless of who is in the majority in the Congress or who is in the White House in terms of party, we have to build this movement. We have to build this movement regardless. And so that's what this piece of the work is about. All of the electoral work is important. All of the other work that we're doing is important. But doing this very grassroots base building is extremely important for the longer term in order for us to win this policy. And so I applaud everyone for being here. Actually, if folks didn't see the town hall, I do encourage you, and you can go to healthjusticetownhall.org to watch it. But Representative Presley powerfully concluded at the end. She said this affirmation. She said, "I will choose the discipline of hope over the ease of cynicism." And I've reflected a lot about that over the last, the onslaught of news is just so overwhelming. And hope really is indeed a discipline, especially in times like these. And so I encourage folks to dig in when you have the time. Talk to your council members before the election, after the election. Winning a local resolution is a way to help build the hope and power we're going to need to transform our healthcare system and our country. So please do sign up on the map. I put the link in several times, but you can go sign up on the map, put your town on there, sign up to one that's nearby. We will be hosting another monthly webinar in late November after the election. So keep an eye out for that. We will again send the recording. We will give you more opportunities to be involved. And thank you so much for joining us. Have a good evening.